Hi, this is Katie Stevens from The Bold Type, and I'm in studio with The Hollywood Reporter.
I can't believe it's been 10 years since you were on American Idol.
That is crazy to me. It's actually 10 years since I auditioned, and then
Yeah.
it was kind of like a year and a half process of the whole thing, but it's crazy that it started not too long ago.
That's insane. That was such a staple show in my family, and I'm still like a big Idol fan.
Oh yeah, same.
And your rendition of Let It Be and Wild Horses was one of my, two of my favorite performances of your season.
Thank you.
Looking back, what were your favorite memories from that show?
Oh wow.
And least favorite?
Well, least favorite, I would say, is when you get eliminated,
Yeah.
of course. But I would say it's hard to pick one just because it was such a whirlwind experience. I mean, I remember getting up in the middle of math class and like telling all of my friends that I was going to audition, and it just kind of was just the idea of it at the moment, and then it just progressed and my life got crazy within the course of like a month. But I would say my first audition is probably my favorite and most memorable. It showed my grandma, and it was kind of, I just see my excitement on my face, and it's just really telling because that's the first thing that got me to where I am today.
Do you remember performing Let It Be and Wild Horses? Do you remember those specifically, or?
I do. I remember being really thankful when it became Rolling Stones week because I remember the judges just kept saying things to me like, these songs that you're choosing, they're too old for you. But what they loved about me when I auditioned was that I was young with an old soul.
Yeah.
But then I think they wanted me to just kind of be younger and be more my age, and I just I had trouble doing that.
Well, it's hard to navigate each of their different notes, I guess, throughout.
But then when you get something like Rolling Stones or the Beatles, you really have no option. You have to do what their songs are. So it was nice because it was the first time that I could just sing and not really have to worry about whether or not they were going to tell me that I was too old or something.
That's awesome. What would you say, I guess, would you give as advice for people kind of on the show now and younger talent kind of starting out on the show?
I would just to say remember that it's your passion. I think that I got really lost in my experience of just thinking about the fact that I was going to get judged immediately after, and it kind of kept me from just singing because it was my passion, and it was like singing to compete. Yeah. And I think that's where you kind of get lost, but I think that you can really tell when people are singing because it makes them happy and they're enjoying themselves.
Now, after the show, you got a job in LA.
I did.
You started auditioning as well. What kind of
Yes.
motivated you kind of to do that and stick it out?
I think I just was motivated by fear of something not happening for me, honestly. I think that I had seen a lot of my friends who were idols kind of give up or go back home, and, that made me really sad. And everybody who comes off that show is so talented, and so I just, I really was like, I need to make something of myself, and I need to continue to pursue this. And that's kind of why I switched over and started auditioning for acting things, because they both were my passion growing up, singing and acting. And I was like, well, I mean, if I'm feeling defeated in singing, maybe I should just see how I feel training the acting muscle and going out for things. And I mean, that was filled with way more rejection, but in a weird way, you're getting rejected every single day, so you get used to it. You get used to it, and you can just brush it off, because the difference is I feel like when I'm singing or when I'm singing a song that I wrote, if somebody doesn't like it, it feels like they don't like me, because whatever I'm singing or whatever I've written is from personal experience. Whereas when I go in for a role, I'm auditioning to be someone else. And if they don't like my version of it, it's not them not liking me or the fact that I'm not talented. I'm just not right for it.
For the role. No, and speaking of the breakout role for you on Faking It, when did you realize that was going to be a breakout role? And
I
did you?
didn't.
Yeah.
I remember the whole audition experience of that was kind of just tragic and terrible.
How?
My first day that I found out that I got the audition, I got called. It was like a Monday morning, and they said, hey, we have this audition for you. It's in 3 hours. If you could be memorized, that would be great. And so I remember having friends in town from Connecticut, and I was having them read lines to me over breakfast.
Oh my gosh.
And then I went to the audition, and Allison Silverberg, the casting director, I remember her saying, so you just got this today? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, can you hold on? And in my mind, I'm like, she's going to come back and tell me that I should have been more prepared or something. And she brought in the showrunner, and then he brought in the director, and they both really liked me and asked to come back. And it almost felt like this surreal dream.
insane.
I was like, is this happening right now? Okay, I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to go with it. And then I got my test, and I think there is a feeling that you get when you're on set and you're doing a job where you're like, I think this is going to be special and it's going to reach people. And I have been really fortunate that both shows that I've done have been able to do that in different ways. But it's really great. I was just with a few of my castmates from Faking It the other day, and to see how much engagement we get online when we post photos with each other of people who still really care about the show, it means a lot.
There was a lot of excitement when you and Rita were
yes. Everybody's like, reunion, please.
Would you want to do something on screen together
yeah.
again?
I was actually with our showrunner, Carter Covington, and we were like discussing, we were like, okay, if we were to do a Faking It reunion, what would that look like? Like, where would the characters be? But I think that there's some stories that you can't, I think that a reunion doesn't make sense, but I think that it might make sense for these characters, especially because I think
it was gone too soon.
It was gone too soon. We saw these characters in high school, and it's like, there's a world in which, now they're living, I don't know, somewhere in their mid-20s trying to still figure it out. So I would be super down.
When it was canceled, how discouraging was that? What kind of was going on?
Oh my gosh, I remember exactly where I was. I was sitting in my living room, and I just saw Carter's name pop up, and there was just something in me that knew. And I just remember weeping into my fiance's chest, and it's just more of the experience ending. I wasn't crying because I was out of a job or worried about what was next, but I loved that show, and I knew how much that it meant to other people. So I think that my tears were not only for myself, but they were for all the people that the show really helped.
Well, all the fans were crying too. So it definitely hit home.
But it's so beautiful because I see online that there's some people that are just discovering it.
Yeah.
And so I hopefully, a show doesn't become iconic until later on and after it's been off the air for a while. So it's nice that people are just, discovering it. It's continuing to help people, and I would hope that one day we would get to do something together.
Yeah, and with new people discovering it, that just leads to the reunion.
Yeah,
so
we'll tell people you want a Faking It reunion, guys.
So write in the comments, Faking It reunion, let's make it happen. Then you get to Bold Type.
Yes.
What stood out to you about that script and the role of Jane?
Well, at first I met with the women executives, the executives at Freeform, who all happened to be women, and I remember just being like, wow, this is cool. And I met with them, and they were all fans of Faking It, and they were like, we have this script, it's kind of Devil Wears Prada meets like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, Sex and the City kind of vibe. And I was like, all of my favorite things. And they were like, read the script and let us know if you resonate with it. I wasn't getting an offer for a role, but they just wanted to see if I wanted to audition. And so my options to audition were between Jane and Sutton, but when I read the role of Sutton, I don't know, I think I perceived her in a different way, and now I'm like, no one can play that role but Megan Fahey. And I really resonated with Jane. She's a little type A, neurotic.
She's a really dogged writer and journalist.
Yes,
some of the best journalists are like that.
Yes,
ask the right questions.
And she's so good at her job, and it's something that she's dreamed of doing for her whole life. And she's a little nerdy in how much she loves it, and I just found that she was really endearing, and so I was just so thankful and grateful that I had the opportunity to audition. But it was jarring because it was one of the first auditions that I had in a while since having been done with Faking It.
Have you shared your audition story with Aisha and Megan at all? Have you guys
Yeah, we've shared. They
notes?
actually, I was the first one cast, and then I believe they wound up having a chemistry raid, Aisha and Megan. And two other girls.
Okay.
And I was out of town. So then they had met each other already, and I just remember texting the executive producer being like, who got cast? And then I found out that it was the two of them, and I found out their phone numbers, and I messaged them on Instagram, and I was like, hey, we're going to be working together. Want to become friends before? And they actually met up with me in New York because my fiance's band was playing a show in New York.
That's so cool.
And so we went to the concert together, and it was the night before we were flying to do the pilot. So we got to have one night together in New York City and kind of get New York vibes before going off to shoot.
The fans of the show love your friendship with both of them. What's something that might surprise fans about each of them?
Oh, gosh.
You don't have to reveal any secrets, but anything fun?
They're actually both really talented singers. Aisha is incredible at ukulele and singing. Megan was on Broadway.
Yeah.
So we actually sing a lot together, which is why we're all kind of pushing for a musical episode of The Bold Type.
It's the perfect show for
Yeah, we've been making some pitches to the writers because also Melora Hardin sings. Matt Ward is an incredible dancer. I haven't heard Sam sing or Steven sing. That's a lie. Steven sang karaoke, and he can sing too. So we're all kind of musical. So I think that it makes a lot of sense that we do a musical episode.
Make it happen.
Writers.
We're just calling out everything to make happen. Would you want to do like your original music for that, or?
I don't know. I think it would be fun to, probably do cover songs, things that everybody's familiar with. But I'm never opposed to having original music sprinkled in. But I'm kind of at the point where I'd like to take some time to actually sit down and write music and see what that evolves into and see who I am as an artist since I last was attempting to do it.
That's so incredible. Now, going back to Jane obviously being good at her job, in season 3 we kind of see her questioning Patrick and being surprised by what she learns.
She's really trying to get fired.
Yeah, that's a
She's
good way to put
asking for it.
How are we going to see that play out, I guess, the rest of the season?
I think that a lot of Jane's tension towards Patrick comes from her own insecurity. At the end of last season, we saw that Jacqueline published this article, which kind of got Jacqueline in trouble, and it was an article that Jane wrote. So I think that she feels a little bit of responsibility that Patrick is now at Scarlet, and I think that she's so loyal to Jacqueline that she's going to continue to try to keep Jacqueline on top where she believes she belongs. So I think that we're going to continue to see her kind of butt up against Patrick when Patrick starts stepping on Jacqueline's toes. And that's just Jane's way of trying to protect Jacqueline and keep her conscience clear of the fact that she might have had something to do with the fact that Jacqueline is not necessarily on the board's good side.
That's a good way to put it. This season we also see the story of her freezing her eggs. And you've been open about kind of how much you've learned from the show and through Jane. How do you think kind of the show is both entertaining and educating its audiences? And you?
Well, I think that the show is educational in terms of the fact that we're showing these women who live in 2019 and are moving through the world in that way. But especially with my storyline, I've just learned that society puts so much pressure on women to want to be married, want to know who their person is, have kids, and do the whole thing. And some people just don't know. And I think that the other thing that they don't know is that they have options. And I think that that's one thing that I've learned from Jane is that there are so many options in terms of women figuring out their fertility and freezing their eggs if they don't want to have kids necessarily now. But I think that it's just above all to ask questions when you're at the doctor. I think that a lot of people get nervous about what answers they might receive, but I think our show shows you that knowledge is power. Yeah. And just by having the knowledge, you can do what you want with that knowledge. And if you ask the right questions, you get the right answers.
You get the right answers. That's awesome. Where would you say Jane wants to be? Like, what's her end game?
I would say career-wise that she's always aspired to be a Jacqueline. Yeah. But I hate to make like
she has
predictions.
An issue with the .com aspect of season 2.
I think that as we go along the season, that's something that she's going to have to adapt to, and I think that that's really a great thing that we're showcasing is how we are moving into a digital age, and how do we cope with that? How do we move along with that?
We're coping with it here too.
Exactly. But I think that it's great to talk about, especially because we're focusing on a print magazine. But Cosmo is really in the digital world as well. But I think that it's hard for me to say, like, she wants to be Jacqueline, because we've seen and we will see characters like Sutton, who you would think wants to be an Oliver, kind of deciding, well, is that what I want? And I would love to see Jane kind of question those things and have to go on a journey of, is that really what I want? If it is, great. But I want to see kind of the mess of how she comes to those decisions.
Now, being a fan of Devil Wears Prada, you've talked about wanting to work with Meryl Streep. Will she make a cameo at all?
Oh my God.
What would that look like?
Would
it be similar to
If
Devil
Meryl
Wears Prada?
Streep made a cameo on The Bold Type, I would not be sitting here because I would be dead. I would have died.
We're making that happen, too. We're making a lot of things happen.
I am very excited, though, because she's going to be on the new season of Big Little Lies.
Which is
So,
such a good show.
real excited. If she has time, Meryl.
Stop on over.
Bold Type's waiting. But I think that I don't know. Because I feel like it would be really funny because everybody does compare the show to Devil Wears Prada without the Meryl Streep character, though. So maybe that would be interesting.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
This was
you
a
for
blast.
having me.
Make sure to watch The Bold Type on Freeform.